In the concrete canyons of New York City, where ambition often towers higher than the skyscrapers themselves, there is a silent war being fought. It is not fought with guns or soldiers, but with whispers in boardrooms, with signatures on termination papers, and with the cruel, cold dismissal of those who built the foundations we stand on. Today, we bring you a story that echoes through the glass walls of every major corporation in the world. It is the story of Martha, a woman who gave her life to a company, and Marcus, a man who thought a degree on the wall was worth more than 40 years of loyalty in the heart. But before we step into the elevator and ascend to the 45th floor where this drama unfolds, I ask you to please hit the like button on this video. It is a small gesture, but it helps us share these important stories of justice with the world. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel. Join our community of people who believe that truth is always stranger and more powerful than fiction. The winter wind whipped around the corner of 5th Avenue and 57th Street, biting at the faces of the morning commuters. Among the sea of black umbrellas and hurried steps walked Martha. At 64 years old, Martha moved with a grace that defied the chaotic rhythm of the city. She wore a wool coat that she had owned for 10 years, impeccably maintained, just like everything else in her life. She didn't carry a designer briefcase or a tablet. She carried a leather notebook, softened by decades of touch, filled with the secrets, the schedules, and the soul of Sterling Heritage Holdings. Sterling Heritage was not just a company to Martha, it was her life's work. She had started there when typewriters clacked like machine guns in the typing pool, long before computers silently hummed on every desk. She had served under the founder, the legendary Arthur Sterling, a man who knew the name of every janitor and every executive. Martha had risen from a junior secretary to the director of internal operations. It was a vague title, but everyone who actually worked at Sterling knew what it meant. Nothing happened without Martha knowing about it. She was the gatekeeper. She was the memory. But times change. And at Sterling Heritage, the winds of change had arrived in the form of a hurricane named Marcus Vance. Marcus was 32 years old, a prodigy from Silicon Valley, brought in by the shareholders to modernize the legacy firm. He wore suits that cost more than Martha's annual salary, cut slim to fit his runner's physique. He drank green juice instead of coffee and spoke in a language of synergy, disruption, and trimming the fat. To Marcus, the past was not a foundation, it was an anchor dragging the ship down, and when he looked at Martha, he didn't see experience. He saw an antique. He saw a glitch in his perfect digital matrix. The conflict began on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after Marcus took the CEO chair. It started subtly. First, Martha was removed from the email chain for the morning strategy meetings. Then, her office, which had been next to the CEO's suite for 20 years, was reassigned to a smaller room near the elevators, citing a need for better spatial optimization. Martha didn't complain. She packed her boxes quietly. She placed the framed photo of the late Mr. Sterling on her new, smaller desk and continued her work. She knew the company's accounts better than the CFO. She knew which clients preferred a phone call over an email. She knew where the bodies were buried, metaphorically speaking. She believed that her value was intrinsic, that it didn't need to be shouted. She was wrong. One afternoon, Marcus stormed into the open-plan workspace, his voice booming for everyone to hear. He was holding a report Martha had submitted, a physical report on paper, as was the protocol established by the board years ago for sensitive audits. "Who printed this?" Marcus shouted, waving the papers. "We are a paperless environment. I sent a memo. Did you not get the memo, Martha?" The entire office froze. Young analysts looked down at their keyboards terrified. Martha stood up slowly, her composure unshaken. "Mr. Vance," she said softly, "the bylaws require a physical signature on the quarterly compliance audit. It cannot be digital." Marcus laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. The bylaws were written when people used horse carriages, Martha. We update things. That's what I'm here for, to update the dinosaurs. He dropped the report into the recycling bin next to her desk. The disrespect hung in the air like smoke. Email it to me, he said, turning his back, and convert it to the new data visualization format, if you can figure out how to use the software. Humiliation burns differently when you are older. It doesn't flare up like a fire, it aches like a bruise. Martha sat down, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for her keyboard. She knew how to use the software. She had implemented it. But Marcus didn't care about the truth. He cared about the narrative, and the narrative he was building was clear. Martha was obsolete. Over the next month, the attacks became relentless. Marcus publicly questioned her during town hall meetings. He assigned her tasks meant for interns, like organizing the holiday party or ordering catering, ignoring her role as director of operations. He was trying to break her. He wanted her to quit so he wouldn't have to pay her severance package, which was substantial due to her tenure. But Martha had a reason to stay. Her husband, George, was in a care facility battling the early stages of dementia. The medical insurance Sterling Heritage provided was the only thing keeping George in a good facility. If she quit, she lost the benefits. If she was fired for cause, she lost the benefits. She had to endure. For George. The breaking point came on a rainy Friday. Marcus summoned Martha to his office, her old office. He didn't offer her a seat. He stood behind the massive glass desk, looking out at the city skyline, avoiding eye contact. "We need to talk about your future, Martha," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "I am listening, Mr. Vance. I've been reviewing the personnel files. The new direction of Sterling Heritage requires a leadership team with specific qualifications. MBAs from top-tier universities, tech-native backgrounds, agility." He finally turned to face her. "I look at your file, Martha, and I see a high school diploma. I see a certificate from a typing school in 1982. I don't see a degree. I don't see the qualifications necessary to sit at the table with the team I am building." Martha tightened her grip on her notebook. "Mr. Vance, I have run the operations of this company for 15 years. I helped navigate the 2008 crash. I helped structure the merger with Asian Logistics. My qualification is the survival of this company." "That's sentimental," Marcus dismissed, waving his hand. "The board meets next week. I am going to propose a restructuring of the operations department. The director role will require a master's degree in business administration. It's a standard requirement. Since you don't have one." He shrugged, a mock expression of pity on his face. "You are not qualified. You will be let go." "You can't do that," Martha whispered. "The board knows me." "The board cares about stock prices, Martha. And since I took over, the stock is up 4%. They will eat out of my hand. I'm giving you a chance to resign with dignity this weekend. If you make me do it at the meeting, it will be messy, and you will leave with nothing." Martha looked at this young man, so full of arrogance, so empty of wisdom. She thought of George. She thought of the 40 years of early mornings and late nights. "I will not resign," she said, her voice steel. "If you want me out, you will have to look me in the eye and do it in front of the chairman." Marcus smiled, a predator sensing blood. "Have it your way. Bring a box on Monday. You won't be staying long." We are approaching a critical moment in this story. I want to pause here and ask you, what is your opinion on how companies treat long-term employees today? Have you ever seen someone be pushed out simply because they were older, despite their performance? Do you think a degree on a wall is more important than decades of experience? Please, write your thoughts in the comments below. I read them all, and your perspective helps us understand the reality of our workplaces. The weekend was an eternity. Martha visited George. She held his hand as he stared out the window, occasionally recognizing her, occasionally calling her by his mother's name. She didn't tell him about the storm approaching. She simply fixed his collar, kissed his forehead, and promised him that everything would be all right. But deep down she was terrified. Marcus was right about one thing. The board liked profits. If he framed her as a liability, as an untrained relic holding back progress, they might just sacrifice her. Monday morning arrived, with the sky the color of bruised iron. The boardroom of Sterling Heritage was on the top floor, a sanctuary of mahogany and leather that smelled of money and power. The 12 members of the board sat around the long table. These were serious people, bankers, investors, and the chairman, Mr. Sterling Jr., the son of the founder. He was a man of 70, quiet and unreadable. Martha entered the room and took her usual seat in the corner, ready to take the official minutes of the meeting. Marcus sat at the head of the table, his laptop connected to the giant screen. He looked energized, ready for the kill. The meeting progressed through the standard financials. Marcus was charming, throwing around buzzwords, showing graphs that trended upward. The board members nodded. They liked what they saw. He was delivering on his promise of modernization. Then came the agenda item, operational restructuring. Marcus stood up. He walked around the room, making eye contact with every board member, ignoring Martha completely. "Gentlemen and ladies," Marcus began, "we are building a Ferrari here. Sterling Heritage is ready to race. But we cannot win the race if we have parts of the engine that are rusty. We need efficiency. We need modern leadership." He clicked a button and a slide appeared. It showed the organizational chart. A big red cross was drawn over Martha's face. Martha felt her breath hitch, but she didn't move. She kept her pen poised over her notebook. "I have identified a critical weakness in our internal operations," Marcus continued. "Currently, this department is led by an individual who, while loyal in the past, lacks the educational foundation to lead a Fortune 500 company in the 21st century. She has no degree. No formal training in modern management. She is operating on intuition, not data." He turned and pointed a finger directly at Martha. The room went deadly silent. "Martha has served us well as a secretary, but she is essentially a glorified assistant earning an executive salary. She is not qualified to be a director. I propose we terminate her employment effective immediately, replacing her with a candidate I have headhunted from Google. This will save the company $200,000 a year and increase efficiency by 15%. Marcus smiled, expecting nods of agreement. "I ask for the board's motion to approve this dismissal." The silence stretched. It was heavy, suffocating. Martha looked down at her hands. She felt the tears stinging her eyes, not from sadness, but from a burning, righteous anger. She waited for someone to speak up, to defend her, to remember the nights she stayed until midnight, ensuring the merger went through, to remember the time she caught an accounting error that would have cost them millions. Finally, the chairman, Mr. Sterling Jr., cleared his throat. The sound was like a gavel striking in a quiet courtroom. He adjusted his glasses and looked at Marcus. Then he looked at Martha. "Marcus," the chairman said, his voice low and gravelly, "you have been with us for 3 months. You have done a fine job with the stock price." "Thank you, sir," Marcus beamed. "That's why I believe this move is—" "I haven't finished," Mr. Sterling cut him off. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "You speak of qualifications," Mr. Sterling continued. "You speak of degrees. You have an MBA from Harvard, correct?" "Yes, sir. Top of my class." "And you believe that piece of paper qualifies you to understand the soul of this company?" Marcus looked confused. "I believe it qualifies me to run it efficiently." Mr. Sterling stood up. He was a tall man, imposing even at 70. He walked over to the window, looking out at the city, then turned back to the young CEO. "When my father founded this company, he didn't care about degrees. He cared about character. He cared about the people who would stand by the ship when the storm hit." He walked over to Martha. Marcus watched, his smile fading. "You say Martha is not qualified," Mr. Sterling said. "Did you bother to read the company's Charter of Incorporation, the original founding documents?" My legal team reviewed them," Marcus stammered. "Standard boilerplate." "Not quite," Mr. Sterling said. "You see, Marcus, my father was a paranoid man. He was afraid that one day greedy men in expensive suits would come in and try to strip this company for parts. He wanted to ensure that there was always someone in the room who understood the moral compass of Sterling heritage." Mr. Sterling placed a hand on Martha's shoulder. 30 years ago, my father created a special class of oversight, a guardian position. This person holds the tie-breaking vote on any decision regarding the fundamental structure of the company's employment ethics. This person is the permanent trustee of the Sterling Family Employee Fund, which owns 51% of the voting shares of this company. Marcus went pale. "I don't understand." "The trust owns the shares. You represent the trust." "No," Mr. Sterling smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I am the chairman of the board, but I am not the trustee. My father didn't trust me to handle that power alone. He wanted someone he knew was incorruptible." Mr. Sterling looked down at Martha. "Martha is the trustee. She has been for 20 years. She holds the proxy for the controlling stake of this company." The room gasped. Even the other board members seemed shocked. It was a secret held very tight. Martha looked up, her eyes locking with Mr. Sterling's. She had signed those papers years ago, promising the old man she would protect his legacy, but she had never used the power. She had remained humble, doing her job. Marcus looked like he was going to be sick. She owns the company. In a matter of speaking, she is your boss's boss," Mr. Sterling said. "She has the power to veto any executive appointment, and she has the power to call for a vote of no confidence in the CEO." Mr. Sterling turned to Martha. "Martha, this young man has just proposed firing you because you lack a piece of paper. He claims you are not qualified. As the controlling voice of Sterling heritage, what is your assessment of his qualifications?" Martha stood up. She closed her notebook. The trembling in her hands was gone. She looked at Marcus, who was now sweating profusely. His arrogance completely evaporated, replaced by the terrified look of a child who realizes he has broken something he cannot fix. "Mr. Vance," Martha said, her voice calm and authoritative, echoing the strength of the founder she had served so well. "You have an impressive education. You understand numbers very well, but you do not understand people. You do not understand loyalty. And you do not understand that a company is a community, not a machine." She paused, letting the words sink in. "A leader who leads by fear and humiliation is not a leader. He is a bully, and bullies have no place at Sterling heritage." She turned to the board. "I move for a vote of no confidence in the CEO, effective immediately, and I propose his termination for conduct unbecoming of the values of this institution." "Seconded," Mr. Sterling said instantly. "All in favor?" Every hand in the room went up. Marcus stood there, stunned. In the span of 10 minutes, he had gone from the king of the world to unemployed. "You can't do this," he whispered. "It's done," Mr. Sterling said. "Security will escort you out. Leave your laptop and your badge. And Marcus, take the stairs. The elevators are for employees." "I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching this far. The climax of the boardroom was intense, wasn't it? But don't click away yet. The aftermath of this decision and the final lesson Martha teaches us is the most beautiful part of this story. Trust me, the best is yet to come." Marcus Vance left the building that day, not with a golden parachute, but with a cardboard box and a reputation that would follow him forever. The story of his arrogance traveled fast in the business world. Martha did not fire everyone. She did not go on a revenge tour. She simply went back to her desk, But things changed. The board, realizing their mistake in overlooking her, formally appointed her as the interim CEO while they searched for a replacement, a search that Martha would lead. For the next 6 months, the unqualified woman ran the company. And do you know what happened? Profits didn't skyrocket like a tech startup, but morale did. People started smiling in the hallways again. The fear vanished. Long-term clients who had been alienated by Marcus's aggressive tactics returned, citing their trust in Martha. When Martha finally decided to retire for real, a year later, to spend the remaining time with her husband George, the company threw her a farewell party. It wasn't in a stuffy boardroom. It was in the main lobby, and every single employee, from the janitors to the VPs, was there. Mr. Sterling presented her with a framed gift. It wasn't a watch, it was a diploma, honorary doctorate of humane letters, granted by a prestigious university that the board had contacted, sharing her life's work as her thesis. "Now you're qualified," Mr. Sterling joked, tears in his eyes. Martha took the microphone for one last time. She looked at the sea of faces, young, old, diverse. "And qualifications are important," she said into the silence. "Study hard, learn the technology, embrace the future. But never, ever let a piece of paper convince you that you are better than the person standing next to you. Wisdom isn't found in a textbook. It is found in listening. It is found in enduring. And mostly it is found in treating every single person with dignity." Martha walked out of those glass doors into the New York sun, not as a relic, but as a legend. This story serves as a powerful wake-up call. We live in a world obsessed with the new, the fast, and the young. We discard the old as if they have no value. But as Martha showed us, true power doesn't come from a title or a degree. It comes from integrity, from history, and from the quiet confidence of knowing who you are. Marcus had all the qualifications to get the job, but none of the qualities to keep it. Martha had none of the credentials, but all of the character. What about you? Are you focusing so much on your resume that you're forgetting your character? Or perhaps you feel like Martha, overlooked, undervalued, waiting for your moment to shine. If you are, hold on, your worth is not defined by someone else's inability to see it. If this story inspired you, please share it with a friend who needs a reminder of their own value, and subscribe to our channel. We are building a family here, one story at a time, and we want you to be a part of it.